Hi there, my name is Emily. I want to tell you my story about how my brother won a ton of money playing the lottery. Wow, lucky guy. This is going to be a happy story, you might think. Well, listen to what happened and then decide for yourself. You know that saying about how family comes first? Well, maybe it does. That is, until something happens that changes a member of your family so much that you don't even recognize them anymore. In the case of my brother, the thing that changed him was money. Lots and lots and lots of money. Here's the full picture. I'm 15 and my brother Nate is 21. I loved having a big brother. Nate was usually pretty nice to me and didn't treat me like his dumb kid sister. I looked up to him. When he got his first job out of college, I was super proud of him. Nate would sometimes buy me cute stationery or my favorite candy with his paychecks. What a big brother, right? At his job, he joined a syndicate that played the lottery each week. He threw in his share on a Friday, but like most people, never expected to actually, win. Then came this incredible day. I will never forget it. Nate came home and he looked pale and kind of nervous. I asked him what was wrong, and he gave me this quick, tight hug and asked where our parents were. My mom came into the room, and Nate asked us to sit down. Honestly, I was actually pretty worried at this point. Was he ill? Had he been fired from his job? I could never have guessed what Nate was about to tell us. "I've won some money," he said. "The syndicate at work. We won the lottery. It's almost $1 million. My mom leaped up and hugged him. I did the same. We were so happy for him. It was the biggest news I'd ever heard. My brother had won the lottery. When my dad came home, Nate told him about his lottery win, and we all went out to my brother's favorite Mexican restaurant to celebrate. My dad picked up the bill for us all, and we had such an amazing time. In fact, that evening was pretty much the last time we all had fun like that together. The thing is, almost straight away, Nate got weird about his money. My mom wondered if he would want to move out of home and find his own place, but he didn't. That wasn't a problem, but when my mom and dad asked my brother to contribute towards the food bills or something, he got resentful about it. And then, boom! I mean, literally, the family car finally gave up. It was old and it wasn't a surprise, but my parents didn't have enough spare money to buy another. My dad asked Nate if he would be able to throw in a few $100s towards replacing it, and my brother got angry. It was horrible. Nate shouted at my dad that he wasn't a bank or moneylender. I knew my dad would feel so hurt by that. My dad is one of those people who doesn't ask for help too easily. I can be like that as well, and I completely understood how my dad would be feeling. Don't get me wrong, we all knew that it was my brother's money, but he was still living in my parents' home. Plus, they'd worked so hard to put us both through college. Why was my brother being so mean to them? At the end of the day, it was only money, right? It made me sad to think that we were much happier before Nate got so rich. Then something terrible happened. My father suffered a stroke. No kidding, it was so frightening. I was scared that he might die. Thank God that he made a pretty good recovery, although he couldn't get around the house so easily. The major issue was that he wasn't able to climb the stairs. My mom said that we had two options, fit a downstairs bathroom or get a chairlift to help him up and down the stairs. The problem is that either one of those options would cost a few $1,000s, and like I said, my mom and dad do okay, but they aren't exactly rolling in spare money. You know what's coming, right? You guessed it. My mom asked my brother if he would pay for the modifications to our home so that my dad could be more comfortable. The way Nate reacted made me ashamed to be his sister. I know that sounds bad on my part, but I really did. He refused to pay for anything, and there was a huge argument between my parents. A few days afterwards, he moved out and into his own apartment. I didn't speak with Nate for a few weeks after that, but then he called me up and invited me over to see his new place. I mean, wow, it was incredible. Nate's new apartment was in the best part of town, and he had spared no expense in making sure it looked the part. He had a top-of-the-range television, gym equipment, and had filled his wardrobe with designer clothes. I'm only human. I was kind of impressed at all the stuff he had, and I guess I even felt a little envious. But then I got to thinking about my dad. Our dad. I swear the amount Nate had spent on his TV could have paid for my dad to be able to get around our house with a little dignity. I had all kinds of mixed feelings about Nate at this point, but mainly I felt like he was making a big mistake. The brother that I had hero worshipped wasn't acting like much of a hero anymore. And then, to make matters worse, he got a girlfriend who seemed to enjoy spending his money just as much as he did. As soon as Jessica came on the scene, I didn't get invited to watch TV at Nate's apartment anymore. Suddenly, Jessica and Nate were taking vacations in Mexico and Costa Rica and even hitting up the casinos in Las Vegas. It was Jessica who encouraged Nate to quit his job. I was upset when I heard about that. I remember Nate buzzing with excitement when he got his first paycheck. He had been so happy. Now he was happy, but it was a different kind of happy. And it didn't involve his family. It was 2 months later when I got a call from Nate. He sounded really low, and it was a surprise when he asked me to meet up with him. "Will Jessica be there?" I asked. "Nope," Nate had said. "Jessica's long gone." We met in a coffee house near his apartment, and I couldn't help feeling proud of my brother when he walked in, smartly dressed and handsome. For a moment, it felt like the old days. Then I remembered my dad at home, struggling to get upstairs to use the bathroom, knowing that Nate could help out and was choosing not to. I had made a decision. I wasn't going to stay quiet any longer. If I was going to respect myself, I had to tell Nate a few home truths about how mean he had been to my parents. I took a deep breath and was about to speak my mind when Nate got in first with a couple of bombshells of his own. His lottery win had been pretty big, but so was the rent on that slick apartment. With the no-expense-spared vacations, designer clothes, an insanely expensive car, and, surprise, surprise, presents for Jessica, over half of Nate's winnings were already gone. Nate had told Jessica that he was going to ask for his old job back, find a cheaper place to live, and try to hang on to what was left of his money. It turned out that Jessica wasn't too happy about that news, and as soon as she got wind that there would be no more first-class flights to Aruba, she was out of there. I felt sorry for him, but he'd brought it all on himself. Dad, on the other hand, hadn't. I felt my old anger rise again. You could have afforded to help Mom and Dad, but you chose not to. But you're happy to waste money on cars and diamond earrings? Yeah, I'd seen them. For a girl who was only interested in you when you were spending money on her? Nate started to speak. He wasn't used to me talking to him like this, but I cut right across him. You know that you've hurt Mom and Dad so much, but they still love you. They would never turn their backs on you. I looked up to you, Nate, but not anymore. I figured my big brother would always be the good guy, but you're not. I saw Nate flinch at this. I knew that, deep down, he sees himself as the good guy. He wants to be the good guy. He's no better than Jessica, getting his head turned by being rich and forgetting about what makes a decent person. I stood up to leave, and Nate immediately reached for his wallet. "Forget it, Nate. I can buy my own coffee," I said as I left. I walked slowly, hoping that Nate would run to catch up with me, but he didn't. Maybe some of what I said hit home, maybe not. I guess time would tell. But guess what? Within days, everything had changed again. Nate moved into a cheaper apartment and managed to get his old job back. He sent Mom and Dad a check for enough money to get the house fixed up. I know this sounds like a happy ending, but it's not the ending. It's just where we are right now. He's patched up the rift, but I've seen a different side of Nate. I know he isn't as strong as I thought he was. He's capable of making bad decisions and treating the people that love him badly. Look, I don't want to be the voice of doom, but I just have this feeling that it could all happen again. Nate still has a stack of money in the bank, and I guess it's true that money can change people. What if Jessica appears on the scene again? What if he has a bad day at work and gives up his job because right now he can afford to bankroll himself? I swear I can see a day when the money runs out. I don't even think it will be that long before it does, unless Nate figures out for himself what his weaknesses are. There comes a point when you can't help someone, though. Is he happier now than before he won the lottery? I really don't think so. But he is a lucky guy, not because he won all that money, but because when it's gone, I'll still be here. So will Mom and Dad. There'll be all kinds of emotions to handle, but there'll still be love. No matter what, we'll love him. His bank balance isn't his safety net. We are. That's family, I guess. I hope that watching the mistakes Nate has made has somehow helped me become wiser. We have a responsibility to the people we love. If we're lucky, they'll still be there when we make mistakes. We forgive and we try to do better next time. I just hope that Nate knows how lucky he really is, and not because he won the lottery.
Hi, my name is Summer, and I have a really strange story to tell. My boyfriend Andrew has always been a bit mysterious. He is super smart and a little bit introverted, so not a lot of people get him. But I felt like I did. He was always dressed in black, always sat in the same spot, and read weird books that he picked out from a library downtown. Specifically, he loved reading about conspiracy theories and unsolved mysteries. He knew so much about everything, and I found it so sexy, especially when he would explain them to me. Andrew wasn't exactly the typical boyfriend. Like, he got me weird presents, such as black roses and handmade dolls. And when we went out, he took me to places in the woods and other hidden parks he knew. We always had a lot of fun together. I loved him, I really did. But later on, things changed. Andrew started to ignore my calls and texts. He ignored me for days. At first, I was super worried. I thought something was really wrong, and he was going to break up with me. Finally, I decided to go to his house. He was just hunched over his computer and scrolling through Reddit. He told me he'd just gotten carried away online and didn't hear his phone. It was weird though, because he's never missed any of my calls or texts before, but I shrugged it off. I figured everyone has strange days. Maybe he was just tired, or accidentally put his phone on silent. Then it happened again the next day. I didn't hear from him at all, no matter how many times I called or texted him. I called his mom, and she told me he was fine. He was just shut up in his bedroom. I didn't understand why he was ignoring me all of a sudden, but I didn't want it to happen again. So, on the third day, I asked him if we could hang out after school, but he told me he had something important he needed to do. I didn't understand, and we kind of argued about it. What was more important than me? So, I decided to follow him, to know what was going on. I saw him walking out of school and going the opposite way than he normally would go to get home. He was walking for ages, and I started to get really creeped out. It was a weird part of town that no one ever really went to because it was so run down. All the shops were closed and the windows smashed in. Then all of a sudden, Andrew turned and walked through a gate I didn't recognize. I ran up behind him and looked through the bars. It was some old, creepy church. The sun was starting to set, and I didn't want to get caught outside in the dark. So I went home feeling confused and a little freaked out. I started to worry that maybe he'd found someone else and was meeting up with her privately where no one could see them. The idea of it was bugging me so much. I couldn't concentrate on homework. I couldn't eat. So then I did something bad. I know it's wrong, but I pulled up my laptop and I logged onto his Facebook to see if he'd been chatting to any other girls. But what I found was 10 times worse. He'd been talking to some guy with a strange and obviously fake Facebook name. Their messages were weird and sounded like gibberish, almost like a foreign language or something. The ones that were in English were weird. The other guy kept asking Andrew questions like, "Have you done what we asked?" and "Send us proof that you're serious." There weren't many messages, but it was enough to freak me out. I didn't know how to confront Andrew about it without admitting I logged into his Facebook. The next day, I walked home with him after school and confronted him about the problems we've been having. He said that he didn't mean to ignore me, but he felt he had a greater purpose at the moment. I didn't really understand what he meant. What kind of greater purpose was he talking about? That was when he told me that he'd met up with some guys from Reddit a few days ago, and he wanted to introduce me to them. At first, I wasn't sure what to think, but as Andrew started to tell me more and more about his friends, and that they'd all planned to celebrate God together, I felt a little bit better. After all, if they were good Christians, they'd be nice people for sure, wouldn't they? That also explained the creepy church. So, I agreed to go and meet up with them with Andrew. They were meeting in the same old abandoned church outside of town. It was a bit of a ruined mess, but it was kind of cool, and Andrew seemed to be so excited. I wanted it to go well for him, and I wanted him to think I was cool for coming along. But inside, it was a bit too weird for me. There were a bunch of guys all wearing dark robes. They stood around a huge red circle on the floor in the shape of a pentagram. There were candles lighting the room, and what looked like skulls. "Andrew, what is this?" I asked. "It's our weekly meeting, Summer," he replied. "I didn't expect, you said you were worshiping God," I said, feeling confused. "The devil is our god, Summer," Andrew explained. What? The devil? He must have lost his mind. "Listen, Summer, some things are not always what they seem. The devil is not bad. It's actually the opposite. The devil is liberating. Trusting the devil will give you power. In contrast, the other God who wants you to know nothing but blindly worship him. For example, God didn't let Adam and Eve eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He didn't want them to be knowledgeable. He's not the good guy here. If you had children, you wouldn't want them to stay ignorant now, would you? He said with confidence. Andrew kept trying to explain his beliefs to me, even though I was a bit taken aback from the whole idea. I kept an open mind and listened. However, the whole thing was still crazy. I couldn't accept that my boyfriend follows a satanic religion. It was terrifying. Andrew saw how afraid I was, so he reassured me that there was nothing to fear. He then offered to take me to another meeting to decide for myself. I hesitated a bit, but then I agreed. I went to the meeting the next day, and to be honest, it wasn't bad. I had many questions. I started going to those meetings with Andrew more often. In the prayer meetings, they wore these black robes, and Andrew made me wear one too. They would chant things and light candles. It was always in Latin. Andrew asked me to say the words too, so I did, even though I had no idea what they meant. I honestly still had some suspicions. But I kept telling myself that these people weren't harmful, and since Andrew was enjoying the meetings, I should too. After a while, I found myself enjoying these meetings. I got excited to go to every meeting, and I was always with Andrew. I also liked the people there. The community was really nice to me, and I made a lot of friends. Then came the day I was privileged to become a member of Andrew's community, and I got invited to attend a welcoming ceremony. When I accepted the invite, Andrew gave me the biggest hug and whispered in my ear that he loved me. I loved him too, and I was glad that I'm making the one I love happy. Later on, I was taken to the temple where I was going to become a member. However, I was surprised to see that there was a live chicken in the room. The other members told me that this was the ritual of accepting a new member into the community. They had to sacrifice a living being. I laughed, thinking they were joking, but none of the other